Good morning. We'll get started here in just a couple of minutes.
Hello?
We'll give it just a couple more minutes and then we'll get started today. I'm open to any questions that anybody might have also. If you came and you were looking for a couple of specific things, I'd be happy to talk about those. I have a couple things planned for today that I think are going to be important. And so we'll get started there in just a couple of seconds, just a few minutes.
I've got a quick question, if you can hear me.
You bet. Yep, I can, Adam.
I'm not really, I've signed up for DataMaster, but I've been so busy I haven't used it. But and one reason I haven't, I work in Cincinnati, MLS,
Okay.
and we are using Rapatoni right now, and we are planning to change to Perchwell.
Yes.
I think beginning of the year. I think they really don't know when yet, but. And I'm supposed to go to another, when I get back, I'm actually on vacation right now, but when I get back, I'm supposed to go, our local MLS is going to have a powwow about Perchwell. So I'm going to go to that as soon as I get back and see what's going on with that, but did not know how that would affect DataMaster.
So we will be, we have been made aware of that. The switch from Rapatoni to Perchwell is scheduled for January 9th. And we are on track for being able to support that. So from our perspective, anything that you start with Rapatoni, there'll be no change on our side. So if you go ahead and do some customization, you start working with the product, you get the ins and outs, you start becoming comfortable with it. It's going to be the same process on our side once you get an export file out of Perchwell. For us, it's the same. So you're not going to have to remap anything. We take care of all of that for you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, our contract with the MLS is on your behalf. Is that one of the components of those those contracts is that they need to give us notice when they make changes, even field changes, so that we can make those changes ahead of schedule, so that you don't see any interruption in your work, in your
Okay.
workflow. So
Good, thank you.
yeah, so it looks like we have a few on today. Carly, you've joined us. If you unmute for a second, I don't know if you've got a microphone there. What part of the world are you in, and have you been using DataMaster a lot? If you can't speak, I understand.
I'm from California.
Okay.
Um,
Southern, northern, middle.
North of the Golden Gate Bridge in Marin County.
So is
I just
that
started
SFAR, which MLS?
Barreless,
Barrel. Okay, very good.
and I just started using DataMaster in the last month, and it
Okay.
saves me a whole bunch of time. Oh my gosh, I wish I had it 2 or 3 years ago.
Sure. And then Lauren, I know you've been using it for a little while. Lauren and Robert are with us today too. Both of them are in Utah. And welcome. I think with Adam and Carly on the phone, I might switch things up just a little bit different and show you a couple of things that are some shortcuts, I think, for that save me time. And then we're going to look at the market analysis. Today, I wanted to spend some more time there, and a tool that we have that's on the web that is our sensitivity analysis tool. And I'm going to show you kind of how that works. And it's free for DataMaster users. And you do have to, the first time you go to it, you just need to give us your email address. We track it that way, but it's kind of an exciting tool. This last week, there was an appraisal buzz webinar with Danny Wiley, who is, I think of him as the chief appraiser. I don't think that's his official title. He works with Scott Reuter at Freddie Mac. He was on, and they were talking about supporting adjustments, market analysis, and he was joined by John Dingman. And one of the things that they talked about was incorporating a sensitivity analysis in your report as part of your reconciliation. And they mentioned the tool that we have that's available. And so I thought I would spend a little bit of time today kind of showing that tool and showing you how you can use it. And I think right now market analysis is always important for us, especially in today's climate. And so I wanted to spend some time there. So let's go ahead and get started, and then there'll be plenty of time. And if you have a question, I've given you all the ability to speak, and you can mute and unmute. And so I'd like this to be a little interactive. We are recording these, and I'll put in the chat at the end where you can go back and our YouTube channel. You can watch previous Tuesday tips, and in fact, I'm trying to find it right now. I think that this is it. I'll put it in the chat box, and if you have a desire to go back and watch some of the other ones, can't get audio. Okay, let's see. Patricia, so you're not able to hear me? Go ahead and text. I'm talking. Is anyone else having a hard time hearing me?
Nope.
Okay. Um, Patricia, okay, all right, perfect, thank you. I always get concerned when some can hear and some can't, so glad to have you with us. Glad to have you with us. So okay, so this is the home page of DataMaster Pro, and I always like to go through a few little settings. DataMaster is designed to be able to work with any workflow that you as an appraiser may have. You may have an assistant, and so you can even have multiple appraisers that one assistant works with. And as they're starting your files, you can select the appraiser, and then that starts the customization file for that particular appraiser. So, we might not want the same fields customized the same way. So an assistant can have multiple appraisers that they work with if you've got an office that's that way. All of the global settings are in the upper left-hand corner. The three lines here are the global settings. And the one setting I like to highlight that helps with your workflow is under the general tab. It's the navigation. So I like to start with the market analysis. So I put market analysis as the first place that DataMaster is going to go when I start a new report. But if you want to start with the subject, you can just highlight subject, you hit save. The next time you start a report, it's going to land on this subject tab first, right? And also with the comparables. So if right now it's going somewhere where you don't want it to go, it's easy to change that, and you can adjust that based on your own work file, your own workflow, I should say. So another thing on the market analysis, this is where you would change the number of months for us to display on the graphs, and you still have to give us the data. So even if you display 24 but only give us 12 months, your graphs are going to look a little strange because it's going to look like there was no activity 13 to 24 months ago. So you want this to match the data that you're bringing in. When I do my searches in the MLS, I usually bring in about 750 days, so a little bit beyond 2 years. That way I can get kind of leading into, and I can see at least 6 quarters, which helps me in my market for trending. We have some seasonality, and I can see at least two sets of seasonality with that. This is also the section where you can change the colors of the graphs. You can really have any color that you want. I would suggest that the first data series here refers to graphs that have 2 sets of data. So say sold and active listings in one graph. The first set's going to be the sold, the second's going to be the active listings. The first color is the bar itself, part of the bar graph, and then the second color here is the trend line itself. And usually it works a little better if you have a darker trend line than you do the bar. It's going to show up a little bit better. But you can change those if you don't like the ones that they've been defaulted to. I change them a lot, so I don't remember what the defaults are. Also, if you want to start at 0, just check this box. If you don't, you can uncheck it. The polynomial degree or the curve, this again is going to be for the first graph, like the solds, and then the second's going to be the second, or the listings if you're doing a dual graph. I think we're default to 2 curves. You can get a little crazy. 3 is okay. If you get into the 4 or 5s, it's probably not going to be very meaningful because you're going to see a lot of it's trying to connect more data points and it doesn't smooth out very well. But you can play around with it. If you want it to be just linear, then just switch that to a 1 on both of those, and you're going to then just get a linear graph instead of a polynomial curve. So that's where you would make any of those changes. So let's see. Let's go ahead and if there's any other questions about some of the general formatting, I can answer those specifically as well. I started a file here for our market analysis, so it's open here in the background. And one of the things that I like to do is kind of show two different data sets. The first competing market is your traditional 1004 MC. This is designed to fill in your the 1004 MC, the data at the top of page 2 of a URAR, and then also your one unit housing statistics. The one unit housing statistics here represent all the data that is in your data set. This is not just the past 12 months. We have had some requests to have a setting, and we are working on that to where you'll be able to set this to the last 3 months, to the last 6 months, or the last 12 months. Currently, this represents all the data that I brought in, so the full 750 days. The most recent 12 months is represented here in the information that's going to go on the page on the top of page 2 of the URAR. I wanted to share a little bit about the smart field technology, and this is an area where you can really gain some efficiencies within your report. And it's been a little while since I've talked about these, and so I want to spend just a little bit of time and talk about how you can build these summaries. And we're very open to helping you build these. If you have a paragraph that you like to put as a summary, we can help you to create a template for that. And there are a couple of them that are the defaults. So in the seller concession, this is going to be the DataMaster default. You can change that if you would like. And under the REO sales section, this is also the DataMaster default. These are dynamic, meaning that they change as your data changes. Even if I were to change the effective date, this information is going to change relevant to the effective date. A good example of that is the foreclosures here. If you can see this, it says the data used in the grid above does not indicate that there were any REO or short sales or other distressed properties associated with the reported transactions. You'll see there's no data in there. I can show you though that this is dynamic. If I go into the details, let's say I just look at the last 3 months. So this is very handy to be able to look at the last 12 months. And if you've brought in more data, it's actually going to have all the data in here. The 7 to 12 month, I can look at just what the 4 to 6 month is, tells me what the current status is, what the status was during that time period or on the last day of that time period. But if I go here to the 0 to 3 months, these are the most recent. Any of these columns can be moved around, and you can also click on them and sort. So now I have the most recent sale. Let's say that this most recent sale was an REO, and that actually this number 4 here was also an REO sale. I can edit this, click these two, and hit Save Changes. And now when we go back to the 1004 MC, you'll see that this paragraph has completely changed. It says now the Utah real estate, that's my MLS, indicates that there were 36 closed sales in the past 12 months, and 2 of those were either foreclosures or short sales, which is 6% of the total transactions. So these paragraphs we call smart field technology, and they're data driven. Every one of these data points is available to you to write a paragraph based on the data that's there. This is one that I use in every one of my reports in my summary, in the summary section. And I'm going to show you what it looks like and how easy it is to edit it. So let's all that you do is highlight within, and then a little menu pops up. You click on that menu and you can create templates. So if I have a rural market, here's my template for rural market. Here's my default. You can create all sorts of different templates. If you work different parts of your market or different times of the year, maybe you have some areas that, you know, if you're doing an ocean view or, you know, on the river or something like that, upper end properties, you may want this to be different. So I'm gonna go in and just go into this rural market one and show you how you can create these. I'm gonna hit edit, and basically it says that there are, so this is my paragraph, and then anything in bracket is a data point. And the way we get these data points is by inserting the calculated value. So we have about 125 data fields that you can craft a comment over or around for the 1004MC. And then we also have a bunch of them for the neighborhood market, for the subject property individually. So the number of stories, architect type, all of these are data points that you can create paragraphs for. And so if there's something, you know, there's literally hundreds and hundreds of them here. If you have a paragraph that you'd like us to help you to format, you know, just let us know, reach out to our sales support team, and we can help you. If you're also interested in some of the defaults that I use, I'm happy to share those as well. Just let me know, and I'm happy to share them. One thing that you'll see is I use some of these templates in other parts of my report. They don't necessarily have to stay within the 1004MC. For example, the data source here, I use this field, and there's a little statement here that if concessions are relevant or prominent within a particular market that I'm working, I will use this statement. I don't have to type everything. I can just copy and paste it into my addendum somewhere else within the report. And so you can do that as well. You can make these as long as you need. There's no limitation on them, and they'll flow into the addendums for the different software programs that you use. So that's our smart field technology. We'll go over really quick, getting some information into the comparable grid, and then I'll go back to the market analysis, and then we'll do the sensitivity analysis. There's quite a few ways of getting data into the sales grid or to an addendum. If we want to add a listing addendum or the rent schedule, REO addendum, those are just under the addendum section here, and then you would select them, and then they would show up as another tab across the top. So you can either click Get Comparables or Add Property. It's the same link. I can add by address, by APN number or your tax ID number, or by an MLS number. I can also type in a string of MLS numbers. So if I type in a group of MLS numbers, we're going to add them, and you can do them either with a comma or just a space, or a comma and a space. We recognize that there's going to be a change. The order in which you type them is the order that they're going to come into the grid. And so that's the way to get them in, by just typing in an MLS number. This comes in really handy if you've already done the report and maybe somebody wants you to reconsider the value. You get an ROV, and so you need to add, you're coming into an existing report and you want to add a couple of properties that maybe they want you to consider. You can just type in the MLS number or the address and it will put them next in the grid.
Hey, Jared.
So we can, yep.
Sorry, one question on that. When you send this to the report, when you export it and you're only sending one sale, can you go over, instead of redoing all the other sales and overriding it?
Yep.
How do you just put one sale in there?
Great question, Lauren. Let me show you. Let me put a couple of sales in here and then I'll do that very next. So that's a great question. And it happens, it seems to me that right now, I don't know if this is your experience, but underwriters have a lot more time on their hand. And so they're looking at our reports much more in detail, and I'm getting requests probably like you to make some changes or to consider some additional data. So yeah, so let me do that here in a second. So I can also, so that's one way of putting it in. I can also just get from an export file. So these are export files that I've created already, and I can just click on those and it will bring the data in. It'll bring in how many ever comps I selected and put in that export file out of my MLS. So you may have it be an Excel spreadsheet extension. This WFR is the extension that my particular MLS uses. So one other way that is convenient to put comparables in is if you've already loaded your market analysis, you can also get from the market analysis directly. So I'm going to resort this by close date. And these are now going to come in the order that I select them. So let's say this, I want to be comp number 1. This one is comp number 2. This one is comp number 3. And then let's find a couple of, let's find an active listing here. Let's bring this one in as comp number 4. So now I have 4 comparables that are from that original data set that I brought in just as the market analysis. And so I'm just going to add those. And it'll take a second. It's reaching out to the MLS. I don't have to have the MLS open. We're going into the back end of the MLS, grabbing all of the information and bringing it in. I'm going to close those, and you can see here now that those 4 properties have come in. So let's say in Lauren's scenario that I had done my report, I had submitted these 4, and they'd come back and asked me to put another comparable in my report. Maybe they want one that's a more recent sale. Now, one thing, if I already have some comparables in the grid and I come back to the market condition, these that are in the grid are not going to be available. So it's not going to let you do a duplicate of the same listing. And so you're only going, if you're looking for one that's that you were thinking was there, but it's missing, it could be one of your existing comparables. So let's add this Glen Place one. It's going to go in as number 5. It knows that that's the next spot. And it'll take just a second here to go out. This is kind of dependent on the resources that you have in your computer and your MLS, how busy your MLS is, as to how long that takes. So let's say that I've already moved these 4 in, and I just want to put this number 5 in, and I don't want to overwrite anything in the original report. We're going to go to review and send. And then under this comparable section in the very middle, I'm going to do edit. I'm going to unselect all of them and only select number 5. Now, maybe I want number 5 to come into the number 7 spot. That's okay too. So this column lets me put it in the position within your software. This lets me choose which comparable I want to send. So in this case, it's only going to send number 5, and it's going to put it in the number 7 comp spot. Maybe I want it to be on its own page. And so I know that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is on a page, and then I want 7, 8, 9. So I want this one to come in on its own page separate. I'm going to move it up in the report and give it to the underwriter just as a completely separate piece of information. Lauren, does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah.
So this
Jared,
is fairly new. We've always had the ability to unselect and select only the ones that you want. But this section we added a couple of months ago as to the position of the software that you could put it in. So, and that it's going to remind you that only one property is being included in the export. Now, as far as the exceptions report, it's still going to show up as number 5 in the exceptions report, and all of the information, the listing history, the ownership change, any of the discrepancy between data sources, the agent remarks, that's all going to be in the number 5 spot because that matches the comparable grid. And so if you want to bring some of that in, you'll have to edit it once you get it in your report to say the number 7, the number 7 sale. Great question. Any other questions about that or anything else? Wade, thanks for joining us. I just gave you the ability to talk if you wanted to. Go ahead, Patricia.
Yeah, I have an issue when I come back after I've added an additional comp. It re-imports my subject data. Even when I uncheck it, it will overwrite some of the fields on page 1.
So well, let me put a subject in here real quick.
Yeah, if I uncheck it, I import my whole report. I go back to add something like either the marketability report or whatever I want to add, and I uncheck do not include subject, but it will still come over on page 1 and type over some of the subject stuff I have put in.
Okay.
It will come
So
over.
which software are you using?
ACI.
ACI, okay.
And it's little things, but if I don't go, sometimes it brings in an old sale. Sometimes under report data source and offering prices stuff comes over, just random stuff. So I have to always go back and double check that some of my again.
So we need to, it should not be doing that. So number 1, it shouldn't be doing that. I'm going to have one of our team guys, Jay, give you a call and just get an example and put a ticket in for that so that we can make sure. I don't use
talked
AC.
about it with Ray a couple times and they fixed it and then it kind of went back. So I've just kind of ignored it. And it's a workaround. I don't know, it may be intermittent, but anyway.
And I don't use ACI, so I'm not familiar with how ACI, I use Bradford and Total. And so I do know though sometimes if I have formatted and I don't have a subject in, but say one of my formats, sometimes in the grid I'll see like I might have a neutral residential here that might come in even if I'm not putting some subject information in. So what I suspect is that we might have an issue with a couple of these fields, especially if it's an old sale or something like that. But let me have Jay give you a call. Ray is no longer with us. Ray
Right, I'm just saying, but he can call me, but I may or may
Yeah.
not have an example to
Okay.
give him.
Okay, and I'll have him look up your history and see which
Oh,
bug
Jay
it was.
knows me very well.
Okay, okay. I'm gonna get him working on it because that's frustrating and should not happen. So,
Okay.
so we'll get that taken care of. But yeah, when you uncheck these boxes, it should not bring any subject information in. The subject information will still be in the exceptions report for your work file, but it should not push it into your form vendor on that side. So very good. I want to make sure I have your last name spelled right here, Patricia. Hold on, I'm putting it on my notebook here.
Oh, if you just say Patricia with Metro West, he'll know exactly who I am.
All right. Perfect. Okay. Super. So one of the things that I like to highlight about the market analysis, and for those of you that are maybe just using DataMaster for the first time, or you're new to DataMaster, I'll explain. In our market analysis, we have the ability to compare two sets of data. So sometimes we like to look at a sub-market or maybe just my subject's market, say ranch style homes in a particular area. And then I also want to see how those ranch styles compare to other style of homes in the neighborhood. Or last time I did one where we looked at 2-bedroom homes versus 3-bedroom homes in the same exact market, same age brackets or year built bracket, similar square footage. And we were able to compare and see if that extra bedroom actually contributed to value. And so when you look at this tool, when you think about it, we have this marked as competing market and neighborhood market. These are two separate tabs. You can add separate data into both. Really, we're just comparing sets of data. The names really are not, you could do on golf course, off golf course. You could do busy street, off not busy street. As long as you bring the data in and you extract that out of your MLS in those two groups, we're going to be able to share with you side by side what those are. So if you're looking at the graphs here, on the left-hand side is the one data set. So think of this as, I think in this particular case, I did no basement, and in this one I did basements. So the GLA was the same, and I just wanted to see in this one I did 1940 to 1970, and in this one I did 1971 to 1999. So I wanted just to know, are they trending similar? They're the same size properties, but is age or the age of the property having any impact on the market? And so this is kind of powerful when you start breaking down, and grouped paired sales is a really good way of looking at data. The other way you can look at it is if, let's say that you're appraising a bifurcated market, or a market where you know that homes in one particular area compete very well with homes in another area. You could actually set those up side by side and be able to see that and support that within your work file. We have a summary here of the annual. I brought in 2 years data on each. So we have the older homes here. The number of sales, there were actually quite a few more sales that are the newer homes in this particular market. The days on market were very similar. The list to sale price ratio was very similar. Gross living area is similar. The real difference is the age. These are about 20 to 30 years older than the other data set. And they're selling for about $45,000 more in that newer. Now we might have to dig in a little bit and say, well, maybe the newer ones have garages, the older ones don't have garages. They are on very similar lot sizes. And actually the older homes have a little bit bigger lot than the newer homes. So there's a lot of data that we can glean from looking at 2 different data sets this way. And it can be helpful. Also in the summary, you can kind of see where this is all the different data points in the neighborhood one. In the competing market, we also have the summary. The red diamonds here are those comparables that are within the grid. And you can kind of see how those are going. This is going to be an interesting market in a couple of weeks from now as this continues out and we see where changes are occurring. If you're not familiar with this summary tab, there's a lot of data here that is very helpful. None of the software vendors really have a way to consume this or to bring it in. So if it's something that I want to talk about or show in my report, I usually have to do a screenshot and bring it in that way. And so I would take some time and kind of get to know what's happening here. This is the number of, or the percentage of transaction by term, so conventional, FHA, VA, and then this is the aggregate of the sold price. So about just under 60% of the transactions were conventional, and they represent about 61.5% of the volume of sales. So the sale price volume. And so that's how you look at that. If you see all of a sudden we start getting a lot of cash transactions, then maybe that's something that we need to start talking about. Maybe the market's shifting, you've got investors coming in, or maybe we're seeing some REOs, something like that. But that would be a key indicator that you could watch for. Days on market for all property types are highlighted. And then you also have days on market by month. The first column here is the number of sales. This middle column is days on market by month and these are medians for median sales are listed there. So we do have in the works a couple of lines or rows that we're going to be adding. One that we're working on that I'm excited about is the month over month change in the sale price. So you'll be able to see from for example, April to May, what the percentage of change was in that data. And so that'll be one of those columns that's added there. So so let me, in just the last couple of minutes that we have left, let me switch over to the web page, and I'm going to put this in. I'm going to put a link to this in your in the chat box here so that you can get to it. Now, the first time that you go in, it's going to ask you to put in your email address. There's no charge or anything for this sensitivity analysis. And let me just make sure this is going to everyone. And then I'm going to go here to the, so this is what you're going to see when you get all locked in. This is our sensitivity analysis. So basically the principle behind sensitivity analysis is that we start with a wider range of properties from a sale price perspective. And as we make our adjustments, we should get a tighter range. So it should shrink and get tighter and tighter. And as the adjusted range of value gets tighter, it suggests that the adjustments are more reflective of the market. I think it was interesting in the appraisal buzz webinar last week, Danny Wiley made the comment that you don't ever prove an adjustment. You support an adjustment. And the sensitivity analysis is one of those ways that you can support that adjustment, those adjustments. And so here's, I'm going to just throw a couple of files in and show you how this works. I've got them here on my other screen, so give me a second and I'll put them in a folder. Here we go. So what you would do is you would create this. It wants to read your XML file. So in your software, you're going to create the XML file. In total, I don't have to sign the report. I can create an XML file. It's going to ask me all these questions. Are you sure you want to do this? And you just click yes, that you want to do this. So let's say that you're all done making your adjustments and you want to double check and see how do those adjustments work. So I'm going to take an XML file and I'm just going to drop it into the box here and I'm going to say analyze. And it's very quickly going to go through your XML file and it's going to pull out all of the data that it needs there. So it's telling me that my maximum sale price before adjustments was $695,000. And now it is $662,000. So after adjustments, that got smaller. My minimum sale went from 525 to 593. My range went from 170,000 top to bottom to 68,000 top to bottom. And I went from 32% range to an 11% range, or 11.5%. And then it gives you this comment that you can put right into your report. And what the comment says is a good indication that the individual adjustments represent the market's reaction can be seen in the difference between the difference of pre-adjusted sale range and of 170,000 or 32% to the post-adjusted sale range of 68,000 or 11%. Then it says the tighter the adjusted range supports that the adjustments are more credible and reflective of the market. You can copy that and that just puts it to clipboard. Then you can paste it into your report as part of your final reconciliation. It also gives you a little graph here that shows your comps 1 through 6, or how many ever you put into the report. And it will show you where they started and then where they adjusted to. And of course, we like to do some bracketing. So we like to have some stuff that's maybe better than the subject and some stuff that's not quite as good as the subject. And we want those to shrink. And then it also will tell you kind of where your opinion of value, if you've already put that number in your XML file, so you've already filled it in, it's going to say, here's where the subject lands. This is not predicting where you should land. This is coming right off of, I appraised this property for 613. And so it's putting it in there and showing me kind of graphically where everything is. how it compares. And then it gives you the subject property, the comparables, and what their adjusted range is. And you can just print this and put it in your work file if you want, or you can save it. It's easy to just reset it. And then I'll get another one here. And you can just copy another one in, just drag and drop them, hit analyze, and now here's the other one, the next one. This one went from 21% to 9%. The comment is updated for you. This one obviously is a little bit more homogeneous. It's more similar to the sales. Not surprising in this neighborhood. It's a more conforming neighborhood. And maybe you want to add that ideally, a 10% range is ideal for your market, or you're in a rural market and maybe 15% or even 20% is ideal or is expected because of maybe the different features. Maybe you've got a lot of outbuildings, or there's a lot of variety in the data, and it's not perfect data. But this kind of helps you kind of get a handle on that and a quick look. I will tell you that I know a lot of the rule-based underwriting tools do this once you turn your report into the client. They take your XML file and they run it through a tool like this as part of the underwriting process, as part of the check and balance process, along with a lot of other rules. Some of them have hundreds and hundreds of rules that they run through. But again, this is something that's no charge for you to look at. You can build this in an Excel spreadsheet, and you'd have to type in all of the before adjusted, after adjusted values, and get all of those together. Or you can just create your MLS, your XML file, simply drop it in. So literally what I'm doing is I have a file here. Here's these XML files. I just picked 4 or 5 of them here, and you just grab that and drop it in. Hit analyze, make sure you hit reset in between, and that simply grabs the data out. This one's in Smithfield, that's in there. Any questions about this tool? Advisory opinion 37 says that we need to know how the tools work that we're using. And so I'm happy to answer any questions on how this works.
Yeah. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tricia.
Oh, just confirming, you are actually taking your report, converting it to a MISMO, and then bringing it back in.
Yes.
And then where do you access the sensitivity analysis?
Okay, so in the chat box, I put a link in there, and you can just click on that link, and it's going to ask you to put your email address in the first time you go there. And then I just have it bookmarked. So I've just, in my browser, I've just put it as a bookmark. And you can actually take it and put it up in your window here if you just grab it.
Got it. Yeah, no, I obviously the coffee hadn't kicked in when I saw you do this. So thank you.
Yep. No, that's a great question. Another question there?
Yeah, I had a question about now what imports out of this. Is it just the comments, or is it the graph come as well?
So the graph, the graph, I don't, I haven't really brought those in. If you print them, it doesn't look very good. I will be honest with you.
Okay.
If you print this page, it's more for your work file, and for some reason the graph goes through the middle of it. If you wanted to bring this graph in, I suggest using a tool called Snagit, which is my favorite tool. So
Okay.
I would grab Snagit, I would do a screenshot, and then I would add this as a snag. I love Snagit. If you haven't used Snagit, it's a fantastic tool. I think it's like $29 a year or $29 per version, something like that. But you can actually trim and cut out different parts. You can add call outs. You can fill different sections. It's a very, very powerful snipping tool, much more robust than Snippet. It's called Snagit. You can also, it has a library of the things that you've done in the past. This is what the new, I probably shouldn't show you some of this. This is the new appraisal report that Fannie and Freddie are working on. But you can also go back. It keeps track of back in time your different SNPs that you've had, and this will go as long as you keep it. I've been using it since 2016, and so it's really helpful for my work file notes as well. So, and that's called Snagit. I don't get paid to promote them, but that's how I bring stuff into my report. So,
okay.
Yeah, if you hit copy here, it's just this. It's just a clipboard, copying this to clipboard, and then you paste it as a text, a plain text. So now this does include all of your sales. So you'll see my comps 5 and 6 are active listings. And so those are included in here as well. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the solds that I focus on mostly when I'm talking about my sensitivity, because I usually don't give weight or consideration to the active or under contracts. But right now in the changing market, a lot of our clients want to see those, and they kind of want to know how the subject's going to compete with that, compete in the future. So any other questions? I'm happy to answer questions about this or anything about DataMaster. I usually keep this for an hour, and we've got a few minutes here before, and then this recording will be available. It'll be up on the YouTube channel just shortly.
Hey, Jared, is there any, I know it's probably down the weeds a little bit, but is there any like thoughts to be able to rename the competing market and the neighborhood market? Like, so if you were gonna use this information and you're gonna compare two separate markets, like you did in your analysis, say competing market is 2-bedroom.
Yes.
Just be able to rename that in the.
Yep. Yeah, so we do have a user story in for that, and I have to be a little careful on the future roadmap. A lot of those changes are going to be in our web product. So this is still desktop, even though it looks very web-ish. In the desktop, a lot of that functionality is easier to implement, especially when you're dealing with 75, 80 MLSs across the country. But that is definitely a request that we've had, to be able to identify these differently, and also to add a third one. And then the other thing is, in the details, this is very much driven by the 1004 MC form, but we really don't think of a 0 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 12 month breaking of the data. We think more in quarters. And so also on the roadmap is looking at being able to say, I want to see this monthly, I want to see it quarterly, and having flexibility in how you look at this, the data in this in the detail sections as well. So let's see, Patricia, did you have another question? I see your hand up there.
No, nope. I forgot to lower my hand.
Okay. All right. Good question, Lauren. Thank you.
One question.
Yes.
You said, where do I find the previous Tuesday tips?
So it should be in that in the YouTube. I'll put it back in here for, oh, that's not what I want. Let me see if I can get that. It's on our YouTube channel. And I'll just put this in the chat and then you'll be able to go right there. So,
got it.
so
Thank
we
you.
started doing it a little while ago. And here's the, I guess there's 5 of them on there right now. So
Thank you.
that was me talking. That's
Jared, I've got a quick question about how it imports. Does it import gross living area from MLS? Is that where it comes from? Or does it go into county? Does our
good question.
I've got one county
Good
that I work in, and anything that's like a split level property, they include below grade square footage. So I have to go in and, you know, edit every one of those properties because it's the only county like that. So I don't know. And unfortunately, our MLS uses exactly, you know, the same data from the county.
Yeah. So you can actually tell it where you want each of these fields to come from, where you want, how you want the priority to be. So here's my gross living area field. If you right click, it's going, you can format it, but the data source tells you where it came from. So did it come from public record? Did it come from the MLS? And then if you right click and you pick priority, it's a little bit of a waterfall. So this is how it works. So here's the above grade. So I have it set for Black Knight first. So it's going to come in from Black Knight first. Then it's going to come from Utah Real Estate, my MLS. And if it's not available in either one of those sources, then it will go to CoreLogic and grab from the public record in CoreLogic. If you want it to be from your MLS first, whatever field you pick, so site size or anything, you would just pick that, and then you can move it up or down, and it's going to now pre-prioritize where that data comes from. So now it's going to go back out and grab from the MLS first. These little orange bubbles at the top of each column of each comp, those are your data discrepancy bubbles. So if you click on that, it's going to say, I got this from the MLS, I got it from public record. If you click, then it's going to change where that number of bathrooms is identified. And that will come in, first. It looks like, hold on here. I got a challenge with my refresh here, probably because we're making it do a bunch of things. So you can also edit right here. So from the data source, if you see that, you can only open one of these at a time, but let's say that you know that your GLA is double, like let's say the 1800 square foot had come in here instead of the 990. You can just type in 990 or 900 and that's going to be your above grade. Save that, and now that's what will import in, and you have the documentation for that.
Okay.
I think we lost connection to my MLS. Hold on, it's acting weird. I want to see. So we do have a setting now that if your MLS is down, when we go to do a poll, it will bring all the public record data in and fill in as much as we can if your MLS is down. And that's what's happened in this case. So we haven't repolled these yet. And my MLS must have been down when I transferred over. So if you run into anything like that, that's what's happening. It's a fail safe that we have in place where we can get at least some data if your MLS backend database has gone down for whatever reason, weather or something like that. So good question, Adam. Thank you. So you can prioritize any field within here, and you can even say, I wanted to ignore it. So if there's some data that you just know, you're going to have to research it. And you don't want it to come in because you don't want the wrong data to come in, and you just know I'm going to have to do something with it. You could go to that field and you can say, ignore all data source, and then hit save. And now nothing's going to come in for that total room count or whatever field it is. We do have some areas where the data is really inconsistent. It's really bad. The agents, they don't care. The public records is slow in reporting, and so some fields are very good, and the appraisers want those to come in automatically. But then there's some fields where they want to look at every single time, and this is how you would do that. All righty. Well, you guys have a great rest of the week, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jared.
Thank you.